who owns the rights to a photograph? Who owns the copyright to a photograph? The client or the photographer? Well, this is the real owner. So, the Nigerian Copyright Act of 1988, which is the principal enactment that regulates copyright issues in Nigeria. Under this act, Section 39 provides that the author, in this case the photographer, remains the sole owner of the photograph. Under Section 9 of this act it also provides that if I'm hired by someone who is not my employer and if I'm hired by someone who is my employer, the first one, if I'm hired by someone who is not my employer, who is, for instance, Annabelle, she calls up a photographer, for instance, to do a birthday shoot for her or her wedding photography. Now, except if the photographer and herself have a written agreement signing off ownership, intellectual property from the photographer to Annabelle, the photographer remains the owner of this photograph. It's hard for a lot of people to actually understand this, but this is what the law has stated. Now, this is the second instance. So, for instance, I get hired by Standard newspaper as the official photographer. I become their employee and they my employer. Every pictures I take as a photographer during the course of my duty, no matter how long it takes, every pictures I take on assignment as a photographer with the newspaper company actually belongs to Standard. This is what the law also states. So just so you know, you as a person, you as a client can actually request for total ownership of the pictures. That's the intellectual property. It can actually be handed over to you, because I've actually had people say, but I paid the photographer, so how is he still the owner of the pictures when I paid him for the pictures? Well, truth is, you didn't pay for the pictures, you paid for the service. The creativity remains his. He produced it. Now, if you want total ownership of those pictures, it's as simple as a request. From the point of booking the photographer, if you need total ownership of the pictures, you can actually request for total ownership. And what this does is that when he hands over the copyright, depending on the way your agreement is between the both of you, when ownership is given to you, what this means is that it has gone out of the hands of the photographer into your hands. So he has no rights over it. He cannot even display the works. He cannot put it up on social media. This is what it does. What you have done is you have bought everything about the pictures plus the creativity, because pictures are regarded or considered as intellectual property because it's the creativity of the photographer that is dwelling in that picture. He knew the right settings. He knew the right settings for your skin texture, skin color. He knew the right setting for the right time of day and stuff. All of his creativity came into producing this work. So you paid for the service. Now, when you pay for the intellectual property, he's handing over the creativity to you. It means you now have ownership. So he cannot do anything about these pictures. Even if you find a way and you reproduce these pictures and you're making money out of it, he still does not have a say in your pictures. If the intellectual property or copyright is still retained by the photographer, he can actually still display the works basically on social media and the rest, right? He has the right to do so. But here's where his limitation comes in reproducing. He cannot reproduce these works, especially to make money, except if he comes to you that is involved in the pictures, except if he comes to you and you have a written agreement, like he has gotten a consent from you to go ahead to reproduce these works. If I pick up my camera, a professional camera, and I go to the street and I want to do street photography or documentary photography, I'm allowed to actually take pictures. People are involved in these pictures. Buildings, animals, whatever you can think of, cars, especially when it has to do with streets, cars, bikes, buses, lorries, tankers. And the main thing is that there are lots of people in these pictures, right? I have every right to actually take these pictures and sell off. You are in a public space. That is where the law protects you as a photographer. But if you go to a private place or a private public place, now a private place could be a person's compound, person's house, an apartment. That's a private place. And then there are private public places, a restaurant. You cannot also walk into a restaurant because yes, you may think it's a public place, but it's a private place in a public place. So it's regarded as a private public place. So you cannot go into a restaurant, take pictures of people eating and think that you can, or generally, and take pictures and then you now decide to sell off the work because someone wants to buy it. They can use the law against you. The restaurant can use the law against you. Those involved in the pictures can use the law against you because the law covers them because they're in a private public place. The only place you have the right to do whatever you decide to do is if you are in a public place, and that is the streets, the roads, markets. Even if it's in the sky, it's still a public space. You can decide to do whatever you want to do. I hope as a photographer, you take this seriously. Go study the law, and even you as a client, it will interest you to know that there are many things that protect you against photographers. So go study. Very important. Thank you.